Supervillain coffee. I loved the premise of this. I thought this was so great. Going from like a supervillain and going through your probation or rehabilitation into like becoming like a productive member of society, and going from trying for world domination to working like a minimum wage service job at like just like this kind of dingy coffee shop, but turning all of your like science background and passion and drive, which you clearly need if you're going to go for world domination. You need all of those. Maybe not science, but you definitely need drive and determination and lots of passion. But turning that and kind of focusing that and redirecting all of that energy from, malice and general destruction to like perfecting coffee, I think is so great and so funny. I love how they structured it with the different acts, and you really got to see a kind of full story that way, and you got a lot of background without it being like just expositionally given to you, which I thought was great because you ended up really kind of getting to know the villain and the hero and kind of their story, and the sidekick who's obsessed with Twitter and social media and TikTok, or his viewers or whatever. And I thought, like I said, it was a really great mix of giving a story, taking an idea of like, well, what would happen after the hero catches the bad guy, because that's what a lot of superhero movies and comics and everything revolves around, the conflict, the initial fight. But like, what happens next? Is there just prison forever? Is there a chance for probation? Is there, what does that look like? Is it community serve? Like, I love that they kind of took that idea and ran with it and developed it into this, and at the end truly kind of coming back to like who you really are at your core, even if that is a villain.
I really liked Super Villain Coffee. Genuinely, I was dying laughing. Like when he's like, "Oh, you might want to send a hazmat team or somebody experienced with hazardous chemicals." I was dead. And yay, I like the characters. Like they were ridiculous, off the wall, but also endearing. Genuinely, like in like a fun way. I don't know, man. Like Doofenshmirtz, Gru, same. These characters fit in that same like goofy villain, like comedy, evil for the sake of comedy way. And I rock with it. I rock with the idea. I thought it was well executed. I thought it was genuinely funny when she with the parole. He's like, "What's up? It's our favorite parole officer." I was dead. He's like, you have only 33 instances of insulting of threatening customers with the ray or whatever. Like some great jokes in here. Uh, in a way of like they didn't afraid to be off the wall. When I say like dial to 11, dial to extremes, commit to the bit in its finest form, I feel. It was beautiful. I thought, I don't know. I liked it way more than I thought I would. I thought this was great. Very funny.
Super Villain Coffee. So I had a fun time watching this. It was very interesting. The two characters behind the counter were so different, yet still kind of like a two peas in a pod in a way. I like, first of all, I really like the beginning credits. I thought it was very creative to show the names of everybody on a coffee cup, like Starbucks asks for your name on the coffee cup. So I really liked that. And the characters are way over the top, which can be interesting. I think if they're fleshed out more, they would make a great series, because I'm really curious to know what these guys are like in their everyday life. Are they just trying to get through this droll job and make it more interesting? There were some funny moments, of course, but But there was one point where the guy that was in the bathroom, he just kept looking down. It wasn't one point. It was almost the whole time he was at the counter, and I was not sure what he was looking at. Thought he was looking at the pastries at first, and then it seemed like he was reading his lines. So that didn't work for me, but I think, there's a lot of potential here for a good series, I think. I think it would be, you can really expand on this. Just pay attention to the details, such as when the guy asked for a coffee and he just handed him a coffee and there was nothing, there was nothing in that cup because he didn't even make it. And he just walked away without paying. So it was some of those things distracted me a little bit, but overall, I thought it was a lot of fun. The actors did a good job on being kind of over the top and running with their characters. And to me, it was like they were just trying to get through this day the best they could because they have this boring job. So I think with the different characters coming in, the different customers and them, there could be a lot of great interactions for a series and seeing what they're like outside of their roles in this supervillain coffee shop. And you could even, play on that name maybe some more, the supervillain name. But I like it. I think you guys are on a right path. You're very creative, and I want to see more. So great job.
This had some funny moments, but you had to listen very carefully because the sound is very quiet. It goes from crystal clear to very quiet to crystal clear to very quiet. It was at times hard to listen. It did have comedic moments. I really thought that guy running to the toilet was not going to make it in time and make an even bigger mess. But the way they did it was actually funnier, where they had to put on about hazmat gear to clean it. It had the moments where these people look very much like this current generation, where they're always on their phones to the point where at times they almost ignore customers. It feels very authentic to this generation in this current world. And the concept of supervillain coffee, if the sound was fixed, this could almost be like a YouTube series where you could just focus on these guys to see what other things they go on, because they are a unique group of characters where they're all involved in their own little worlds. They all have their unique personalities, but they all kind of work together because they're these unique, nerdy little personalities, but they work in this shop. And you could get into all these different scenarios that would put even more comic into this group of workers. But it is a really funny film. It just needed the sound fixed a little bit.
Supervillain Coffee has these different elements that is normal for this modern day era that we find ourselves living in. Working at a coffee shop and having that hustle and grind, being live and constantly recording the innings and happenings of your life. You have parole officers coming to check in on these people, having this sort of surveillance on the people. You have these villains, these quirky characters that are kind of sick of it and just kind of had enough and, kind of crumble on about like how they feel about their surroundings. And it's this very light humor, balanced, bright sort of story that is kind of being told, but it has a much deeper meaning beneath the layers of the storytelling experience.